My ex-husband betrayed me by cheating with my sister. It's been 6 years since that happened, and yesterday I received an email from him. 33 female. Met my ex-husband Dan, 40 male, almost 15 years ago. We crossed paths at a restaurant where I was celebrating my 18th birthday. He was kind, charming, and mature, making me feel cherished and unique. To provide some context, I grew up in a troubled household. My parents constantly argued, and my dad would often leave for months without returning. He passed away shortly after my sister Abby, now 25 female, was born. Since Abby's birth, my mom favored her more than me. Abby was pampered endlessly, but that doesn't mean my mom ignored me. She did her best as a parent and provided for me. Yet, deep inside, I always felt like something was missing. When Dan entered my life, that emptiness faded. He was my pillar of support, caring and thoughtful. He often surprised me with gifts and took me on long drives. I felt whole when I was with him. After dating for 4 years, we got married. I was eager to start a family immediately, but Dan encouraged me to complete my master's degree and focus on building my career. He wanted us to be financially secure before thinking seriously about children. He seemed like the perfect partner. However, after 5 blissful years of marriage, my world came crashing down. I discovered that Dan was having an affair with Abby. I found out when he lied about going out of town for a week. Instead, he stayed nearby and booked a hotel where he and Abby could meet in secret. This had been happening for 6 months behind my back. I was utterly heartbroken. Abby and I had been close while growing up. I loved and cared for her. How could she betray me like this? When I confronted Dan, he admitted everything. He claimed he no longer loved me, said I didn't give him enough attention, and accused me of not being the woman he had fallen for. Amid this chaos, I discovered I was pregnant, but the overwhelming stress caused me to lose the baby. Dan didn't even bother visiting me at the hospital. Instead, he spent that weekend enjoying a getaway with Abby. Looking back, I should have noticed the signs. Abby was always overly touchy with Dan, and I had caught him staring at her a few times. Yet, it remains deeply disturbing to recall. To make matters worse, my mother sided with Abby and urged me to let it go and move on. I felt abandoned. Losing my child, my husband, and my family left me with no one to turn to. At my lowest point, I even contemplated ending my life. That's when my best friend Tina became my savior. She was moving to another state and invited me to join her. I agreed. By then, I was already divorced and living in the same small town as Dan, and Abby was unbearable. It took time, but I gradually adjusted to my new life. The kindness of people in my new community helped me heal, although I still carry some trust issues. A year after moving, I met my current husband, Tony, 32 male. Initially, I was guarded and hesitant, but Tony proved himself to be reliable and loving. His warmth helped me rebuild my confidence. I was so happy with him that I nearly forgot the painful past I had left behind. His family welcomed me with open arms, and their generosity deeply touched me. Tony and I got married a year ago, and now I'm pregnant with our first child. Life seemed perfect until yesterday, when I received an email from Dan. All the painful memories came flooding back. I'm summarizing his email here. Dan mentioned that he misses me and had tried to locate me but failed. He said he's utterly unhappy with my sister. According to him, Abby is immature and doesn't care for him the way I used to. He reminisced about how I baked cakes for his birthdays and organized celebrations, while Abby only sent him a text saying, "Happy birthday," and didn't even bother getting him a cake. He also claimed Abby is disrespectful and rude. She spends most of her time at bars with her friends and doesn't prioritize their relationship. He revealed that she has cheated on him 5 times, with the most recent affair being with his cousin. Dan added that our mother doesn't stop Abby from her behavior, and he plans to file for divorce soon. Despite all of this, he wrote that he misses me deeply and wants us to give our relationship another chance. He hopes we can rebuild our family and go back to how things were before. Since I don't use social media other than a private Instagram account, he probably doesn't know that I'm happily married and expecting a child. I'm torn between feeling sorry for him or laughing at how green he thought the grass was on the other side, when it's clearly brown. I want to thank everyone who messaged me and offered support. I've decided to respond to Dan with an email to close this chapter once and for all. Here's what I wrote. Dan, I'm sorry to hear you're struggling, but I need to be clear. There's no chance of us being together again. Yes, there was a time when I would have taken you back in an instant, but that version of me no longer exists. That girl died the day I lost our baby, while you were off enjoying yourself with my sister. I called you during my darkest moment, and you never answered. I'm now married to an amazing man who truly loves and values me. We're expecting our first child together, and I'm excited to start this new chapter of my life with someone who genuinely cares for me. Please don't contact me again. You made your choice when you decided to pursue my barely legal sister. I don't care if she cheats on you or disrespects you. Someone like you doesn't deserve loyalty or respect anyway. I've left my old life and that old town behind me. It's time for you to move on as well and reflect on your own actions. You're just an insecure man clinging to the illusion that being with a younger woman would solve your problems. Goodbye. Many of you have asked about Dan's response. He replied within an hour of receiving my email. He wrote that he was foolish to believe I'd wait for him and claimed he'll always wait for me because, in his words, no matter what, you'll always be my baby doll. I felt an intense wave of discomfort when I read his email. He used to call me baby doll, and while it once seemed sweet, it now feels utterly revolting. Soon after, I received messages from my mom and sister. My mom simply congratulated me and expressed her excitement about becoming a grandmother, while my sister chimed in, claiming she would be the cool aunt. I couldn't believe their audacity. Have they completely forgotten how they treated me when I needed their support the most? They betrayed me in the worst way possible. I broke down crying, overwhelmed by the painful memories and emotions. Reading your comments made me realize something horrifying. It seems like both my sister and I were groomed by that man. It's a thought that makes me feel foolish, but it also makes the betrayal sting even more. While I know I shouldn't harbor anger toward my sister, I can't ignore the fact that she was old enough to understand the gravity of having an affair with a married man, especially when that man was her sister's husband. I made the decision to block all of them. At 5 months pregnant, I can't afford any more stress in my life. Thank God for my husband, Tony. He held me while I cried, comforting me in the way only he knows how. Later, he took me out for ice cream to lift my spirits, and for the first time in a while, I felt a sliver of peace. I'm determined to move forward and leave this pain behind me. After calming down, I feel ready to provide a more detailed update. I genuinely appreciate all of the support I've received from everyone. It means the world to me. The email from my ex struck me like a freight train, dragging back all the memories of the pain he caused me. After replying to him, as I mentioned earlier, I received 2 more emails a few hours later. They were from my mom and sister, sent to an old email address I barely check anymore. I have no idea how they learned about my pregnancy. I've been very private and haven't posted any photos of my baby bump or shared the news publicly. My only social media presence is a private Instagram account where I follow close friends. The thought of them knowing terrified me, and I broke down in tears on the spot. Luckily, Tony was home. He immediately held me, helped me onto the couch, and stayed by my side. He knows everything about my past. There are no secrets between us. I confided in him about my fear that my mom and sister might try to track me down. He reassured me that we're hundreds of miles away from them, on the opposite side of the country. To calm me, Tony took me out for ice cream. It took 2 cones to finally feel better, and I even managed to laugh. I shared my concerns about them possibly trying to see my baby, a girl. Tony promised to take action, saying he'd speak with his uncle, who is a police officer, to ensure we're protected. He also plans to consult his lawyer friend to prepare for any situation. Tony even joked that, if necessary, we could move to another country to keep our peace intact. His unwavering support gave me a sense of security I desperately needed. Lastly, someone commented on my previous post, suggesting I inform the daycare about my mom and sister in case they try to take my baby. While I appreciate the advice, we're not planning to enroll her in daycare. Even though I'm currently working, I've decided to quit my job to focus on raising my daughter and healing after childbirth. Thankfully, I have a solid savings account that allows me the freedom to make this choice, and it's one I feel confident in. I plan to return to work once our little princess grows a bit older. My in-laws are truly wonderful. My mother-in-law and father-in-law live nearby. They are both kind-hearted individuals who frequently offer to help with my child. Beyond them, I am fortunate to have a strong support system. Tina and her wife, Jenny, have essentially taken me under their wing. They are incredibly kind and always there for me. While I'm unsure of what the future holds, I take comfort in being surrounded by supportive people, something I never had growing up. Now, I'll sign off and enjoy being pampered by my husband. If any major developments occur, I'll be sure to update you all. As for my ex, her sister, and mother, they remain blocked. There haven't been any significant updates since my last story, until now. Something unsettling happened. My husband's nephew placed his hands on me while I was asleep, revealing this could shatter the entire family. His nephew, who is also his godson, is just 15 years old, nearing 16. While my husband was overseas for a month due to work, I stayed in our home alone. However, feeling uneasy about living there by myself, my sister-in-law, who is my husband's sister, suggested I stay at her house in their guest room. My husband's family has always been incredibly welcoming, embracing me with open hearts despite my coming from a troubled upbringing. His oldest sister, who is 47, has been particularly supportive. My husband is 41 and I'm 32. I genuinely enjoyed my time with my sister-in-law. Everything seemed to be going well, although I miss my husband dearly, with whom I spoke several times a day. One night, I stayed up late watching House of the Dragon in the living room. I must have dozed off on the couch. I woke up startled to find my nephew's hand under my shirt. Panicking, I pushed him away, but he silenced me by placing his hand over my mouth and pinning me back onto the couch. When I struggled, he struck me in the chest several times, demanding I stop resisting. Desperate, I grabbed a glass of cola from the coffee table and struck him with it. Hearing the commotion, my sister-in-law rushed downstairs. She immediately began yelling at him and shoving him out of the room. She ordered him to go to the guest house and followed him, likely to tend to his head injury since he was bleeding. Later, she returned and helped me clean up, as I had wet myself out of fear and accidentally cut my hand on the shattered glass. She then gave me sleeping pills and stayed with me in my room that night. When I woke up the next day, I found myself alone with her. The warmth and kindness I had felt were gone. Instead, she accused me of leading her son astray. Despite witnessing the incident, she claimed she had seen nothing and insisted no one would believe me. She blocked my way when I tried to leave, arguing about what the family would think. I broke down in tears, pleading for her to let me go and promising to remain silent. Eventually, she allowed me to leave. Now that I'm back home, I feel lost and unsure of what to do. This situation could devastate my husband, who cherishes his family deeply. What if he blames me for tearing apart the family, or worse, doesn't believe me? He will return in 3 weeks, and by then, my bruises may have faded.